Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And today we are joined by MSU Mystical Life Coach, Treloar Hocking, everybody.
Hey, Treloar. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you both. It's really awesome to hang out with you again.
Yeah, how are you? You just got back from Hawaii. You look glistened. You look glowing.
Oh, yay. Yeah, I got a little sun. I'm good, well rested, which is exactly what I needed. And, just moving through life every day, lots of new stuff that we're learning. I was just recollecting that sometimes I'm getting things in my sleep now, like little downloads. I got one this morning about 4 a.m. and was hoping to get to share it with you guys today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you woke up at 4 a.m. We're like, oh, here it comes. Here's the download.
Yeah, I went back to sleep.
I know there are a lot of people out there that you're on this journey that wake up at that time. And it's happened to me a few times.
Yeah.
Like, I can't go back to sleep. It's like all this energy is rushing in.
Yeah.
But you were able to get some rest after.
Yeah, I was. I had to get real quiet though in order to get a little bit more rest, but I needed it. So
you just said so yes, for me too, right before I'm going to sleep or like in the middle of the night, like I'll get visions or I'll get like messages and things like that. You said something to me before this episode started of like, so what is that? What's happening to us when we're sleeping?
yeah. Well, some of the things that I'm learning, and the three of us just completed the introduction to the Universal Ways of Oneness class that MSU does, which was off the hook. I have changed so much as a result of that class, and I will continue to change for the rest of my life because of it. And one of those ways that I've changed is having stuff come through while I sleep. Wow. And I guess I really didn't have the understanding that when we sleep, obviously the physical body is resetting itself. Like all the systems are completely shutting down except for breathing and the heart pumping blood, right? And it's so the body can regenerate. But what I recognize now is that this, the spirit actually doesn't need to be present because we're unconscious. And so it's out learning lessons and recalibrating itself as well. And so through this class, I've just started to really experience some of the effects of, spirit letting stuff come in when my physical body is out of the way. And some of those things are the ways that we learned coming through and just like integrating into my psyche, if you will. Wow. And then symbols and, I get woken up now in the middle of the night with a little download or dreams have been a lot more, like actively awake, like those real active awake dreams where you're in third person watching yourself in the dream. So things like that have been happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's a lot better than the dreams that I have.
Well, I have fear dreams too.
I'm constantly waking up in the middle of the night thinking something is trying to get me or
not fun.
Yeah. Well, I told you I went back to sleep. I had a fear dream after I went back to sleep. So.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us about this download that you got at 4 a.m.
Yeah, so cool. So just to say, like, I started having this conversation with myself. I woke up and all of a sudden it was like, what does it mean to take things personal? And I was like, ooh, this is really interesting. And it's not surprising that it came through because I've heard my kids say things like, this isn't about you. This is about me lately in their healing journey. And taking that in and thought, gosh, when you hear something a few times, it's usually the universe trying to point something out to you. And so this download kind of came in off of a conversation like that with my beautiful daughter yesterday. And she was like, it's okay that you take things personally. And I was like, no, actually, so I think that's where some of this information just came in, and my soul was up there working it through. And so some beautiful stuff. And so what I recognized all of a sudden was, that in order for me to take something personally, it means that I have a point of view. And so I thought, well, okay, what are the potential points of view? Well, is my point of view in past or future? Right? So am I thinking about the experiences, maybe the trauma, the programming? Is that in the point of view right now? Is the projection of what I hope my future is in the point of view right now? Or am I in the present moment? And to recognize that, how I take things personally, the extent of what I do, how I react and respond to those experiences around me, are on the basis of that point of view, past, present, or future. That dropped in last night. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And then next to say that obviously things are happening to us and around us all the time. And there is always going to be an element of, we take it personal because it's happening to us or around us. That's just part of the human experience, right? And then to recognize, for me, I was like, okay, well, what's my heart experience in those moments? Right? So I know from a lot of the learning that I've been going through lately that when I'm in the past, I'm most likely triggered or reliving programming, conditioning, woundedness, and things like that might have happened to me or around me just from living in this lifetime. And so my heart generally can be more closed. It's definitely not as open as it can be when I'm living in the past. And then if I'm using all of that experience from the past and projecting it towards the future, and that's affecting my hopes and my expectations, also, I don't have a really open heart because I'm outside of the present moment. And then in this learning that we do at MSU, I've recognized how important my relationship is with my heart, right? That when I can be in the present moment, frankly, I have to pull myself out of the past and out of the future in order to expand my heart to the fullest. We have to come into present moment. And so I thought, wow, understanding that really changes the way that I take things personal. Isn't that interesting?
Super interesting.
Yeah. And so let me give you a couple more examples. So everybody is moving through life in the past, present, or future, right? And we're all in reactive mode most of the time because our hearts aren't always open. And that's just the reality of how we are as a species. Is that okay to say?
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of times we're just in reaction mode. And when we're in that space, we're taking things personally. I'm now a victim. I'm emotional. I want something to change, right? And so it's really, really a personal experience when I'm in that space. Hope you can still hear me. My video just went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so most of us are taking things personally, really personally all the time, because what's happening to us is going through the programming and the stories and the conditionings and things that we have. And so the level of taking things personal gets real. And so what I'd like to pose is, how real is it really? Because if I start to take responsibility for my point of view and whether or not I'm in the present moment in an open heart, right? The amount or the level that I take things personal go from great, to not so great, whatever is happening. And so what I can do then is say, well, get into the present moment and ask myself, is my heart open? And then start to recognize, am I triggered by what's going on here? And because most of us are in reaction mode, most of us are being triggered. And so we're definitely taking things personally. And that experience starts to get layered on top of us, right? And it just gets added on to the rest of the experience we have and just becomes part of, who we are all day, every day, because we take things personal all day, every day, all the time. Yeah. And so I think one of the things I wanted to share that came in through me last night was, you know, if I can change my perspective that things are happening for me instead of to me, I can shift into the present moment and expand my heart faster. Yeah. So those are some of the things that were dropping in for me last night. Well,
Very
really
cool.
this morning.
I could definitely tell when you first started speaking that it felt like my consciousness was being stretched. I was like, I'm struggling to understand exactly what she's saying. I could feel it, but I get what you mean. I had an experience recently with one of my parents where I was sharing with them this pain that I was in from my childhood. I had to deal with them. And instead of offering me compassion about my pain, it was, well, how do you think I felt? And it was like immediately, immediately I went from like being in pain and like trying to understand like this depth to it. It's not about me, it's about them. And the reason why I was in pain was because of what happened. And clearly they were taking what I was saying very personally, and what I'd been doing very personally, when I was just trying to heal me, just trying to like create space for me to heal. And it's interesting because this bleeds into like boundary setting. When we take space from somebody and we set a boundary, people can take that really personally. Like, I'm setting the boundary to honor me and my pain, not because of anything to do with like you.
It's also
like,
to honor them because you don't want to project your stuff on them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And they don't know it. They have no idea because they've taken it personally on the, more on the closed heart side as opposed to the open heart side. Yeah, it's a great example. Like your parents may not be doing the work, so they don't understand that it's actually pretty courageous for you to stand in front of them and say, oh my gosh, I was so wounded. Right. And this is what I'm going through. And, I'm showing up with integrity. I'm showing up taking responsibility for the fact that I took all that really personally. Right. And, a lot of people don't have those tools. They don't have those tools, so they don't understand it. So like we're speaking to the wrong audience sometimes. And what a beautiful lesson that you had, Danny, because from them is that like right now, all they're going to do is take it personally on the closed heart side, for lack of a better word.
and what just dawned on me then whilst you were talking is the reason why we're in this whole situation talking about it is because when I was a child, I took it personally.
Exactly. Right? Yes, beautiful.
When one of their parents leaves, like they're 6, what do you think they're going to expect to think? They're going to be like, well, there's something wrong with me. Clearly I did something wrong to be, to be experiencing this, because their perspective, their worldview is so small. Like when we're kids, it's like mom, dad, me, maybe a sister or a brother. Like, where do I poop? Where do I sleep? Where do I eat? And that's it.
Right.
And where do I play? Like,
you're my whole world. You're supposed to be providing all the safety, right? Yeah. I so appreciate that.
And that actually shows me, I think I took every single day of my mother going off on me. I took it personally.
Of course.
So personally.
Yeah.
I was like,
of course we did.
I must be the reason she's so angry.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, right. Well, and so it wasn't wrong that we took it personally. Like Danny was just sharing, that's part of the human experience. It's part of why we're conditioned in the way we are. And that's why when it was coming in last night, this morning to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such an interesting dynamic topic, because of course these things are happening to us and there's always going to be an element of taking it personally. And it's the point of view that makes the difference. Am I a child? Am I an adult? Am I a senior? The point of view throughout our lifetime is very different by our circumstance. Very different. Yeah. And that's why, I had that one example of the point of view, past, present, future. But here, this beautiful point is, like, where are we in our growth phase, just as a human in this lifetime, and how we all have childhood wounds, because in that instance, our world, like you said, was so narrow. And these people were supposed to be teaching us and setting examples for us and giving us foundations and principles, and and they didn't know to keep an open heart during it, so that's how we got all this closed heart programming, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about this, it reminded me of something that happened last night. We met up with like an old friend of Danny's, and we're obviously new to San Diego, and it's not like we have like a plethora of friends. And he said last night, he's like, yeah, I was gonna ask, like, I don't mean, anything by this, but like, it seems like you guys don't really kind of have like people around. And it wasn't what he was telling me that I got offended or I took personally.
Right.
It was the energy of what he was saying to me that triggered me.
Oh, it triggered you.
Yeah. But it didn't trigger me like, oh my God, I'm so triggered. But I'm like, oh, why did that make me feel a little uncomfortable? And I think the energy that he was coming from was this like pity, or like, I feel bad for you. Like, it seems like you guys don't really have anybody or anything. And so then I got triggered because I was like, oh, excuse me. Like, I did make a friend and da-da-da. And I was like, oh, why are you getting defensive right now, Ellie? Because I took what he was saying personally.
Right. I did not.
Yeah, you did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. We don't have to hang around with any. Because I spent for so long hanging around with people to hang around with people.
Yeah, to not feel alone.
It was like I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to be around people. So if I just put myself in places where people would be, if I just hung around with, friends, even though like the connections might have been somewhat superficial, it was like great because I didn't have to be alone and I thought I was connecting with people. But now I'm in a place where I only want to spend time with somebody if I really want to connect with them. And that's way more enjoyable and way more powerful and freeing for me.
I love it. And I'm so glad you guys brought this up too, because one of the things that's coming through for me was, like, I know all three of us are kind of we're in the highly sensitive people category. And for those of you who don't know about that, one, everybody can sense, feel, and know at the same level, but some of us come in with it a little more pronounced automatically. And so highly sensitive people can feel and sense and know things from other people just by being in their presence or even hearing about them. And so one thing that's been really clear to me lately, like this month, is the fact that part of my highly sensitive, and Ellie, you just beautifully, alluded to it, is we can feel the energetics of what it is that they're saying. We can feel their programs.
Right.
We can feel their projections. And so you so eloquently shared that you felt that. And as a highly sensitive person, we can be triggered by it really easily because highly sensitive people take everything personally. Okay. One, it's our job to show up sensing and feeling. And so there's it's personal because it's my job section. Let's put that aside for a second, right? I can sense and feel other people, not just me. So I'm not just dealing with my emotions, my energetics. I'm dealing with everyone else's energetics. And I'm so glad to get to make this point because, if we're saying, hey, are you taking things personal? Well, you're darn right I am. I kind of don't have a choice. And so as a highly sensitive person, we have to learn that discernment, right? And this is what the three of us and others are doing is, as highly sensitive people, is starting to learn how to discern. And so if I bring it back to the point of view, like, okay, I'm an HSP. Yeah, it's kind of my job to know like this is going on so I can hold some beautiful harmonizing heart space energy for it, right? That's one of my roles here. However, I could, is this really about me? Like, is that projection something I should own? Should I take responsibility for it? How do I need to shift and show up because this is their projection? And so there's a whole lot of energetics that goes on for us highly sensitive people. And just to say that discernment is key. And so when we take things personally, even if you're not HSP, when somebody's interacting with you and, things are happening all the time, it's that discernment that all of us as humans go, oh, okay, is this their stuff or is it mine? That's theirs.
Yeah.
Do I need to do anything about it? Maybe I just need to shift to some compassion and understanding right now. That allows that in itself right there is not taking it personally, that's their stuff.
Okay.
Right? Or I'm triggered as fuck. And even though I know it's your stuff, it just brought my stuff up. And I couldn't help it. It just happened. My stuff is there. And that's when we can open our hearts, right? We know to open our hearts and just surrender to the fact that I'm not taking their stuff personally, but their stuff still brought my stuff up.
Yes. And that's what happened last night was I wasn't triggered by what he said.
Yeah.
It was that I could feel his programs, which then obviously triggered a little bit of mine of like, oh, you're looking down on me, which is for me to go into. But in general, I was like, that's what he said doesn't actually offend me. So mine is because I was feeling his programs running. Then it was a gift because it triggered a little bit of the you're looking down on me. And then I need to like puff up my chest, which is great for me. But in general, that's what it was of like, what's he running right now that he's saying that in that way to us?
Yes. And see how it can go. It can shift. That's that point of view shift that can go, this isn't happening to me. It's happening for me.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
This is happening for me. Every single situation in life, we can shift our point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. And that's what changes the level of taking it personally. Again, everything's always personal if it's around you. There's never going to be a zero element. You're there in the room. You experienced it. There's always an element of this is personal. I'm here experiencing it because I got to move through it. However, is it an opportunity for growth and healing? Is it an opportunity for me to open my heart for myself and unconditionally love? Right? The mirrored program that the two of us share. Darn right it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard that kind of concept of life happens for you, not to you. And it was in a Tony Robbins Power Within workshop. And it's great when to have that philosophy. And that to me is like, yeah, that's the good side of like positive mindset, to have a positive mindset.
Yeah.
But if it's not coupled, and this is where it falls short with the work that we do, where it's like, okay, yeah, this bad thing that you might call bad is happening for you. But if you don't know the process of how to extract the good out of this situation, then you just end up bypassing everything that you're doing. Like, oh, this is for me.
Yeah.
This is for me.
And don't do anything about it.
And don't do anything
Brilliant.
about it. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, I could tell it was like, it was good, but it was only part of it didn't feel complete. And now that I know this work, I understand it on an experiential level where it's like, yeah, it is for you if you choose to grow and learn, and what we call at MSU, incorporate the cycles of wisdom and gain the gift of knowledge and gain the gift of whatever it is that's bringing, that situation's bringing to you. And when we do that, then everything really is for you. But it's so easy to fall into the, woe me, I'm a victim, I can't believe this person just did that to me. That's so easy to fall into. And I'm still working on my victim consciousness programs. And they're rampant throughout my whole family. I feel them and see them all the time. And it's an easy path to fall into. And that was how I was programmed, was blame and feel bad. And like, what about me? Feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out of.
Yeah, there is such a fine line. I have a family member whose whole thing is, well, it was given to me, but there's no change. Not that there are these rare times where this person will learn a lesson or whatever, but for the most time, it's like, well, it was given to me, so I like have to be okay with it. Instead of, if this was presented to you, how can you evolve? How can you grow? What can you learn from this? But it's an excuse to stay stagnant. It's an excuse. If someone goes, oh, well, God just gave this to me. it's like, well, you're not looking at the reasons why this was given to you and what it's asking you to do and where it's asking you to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just another form of bypassing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and on this topic of things happened, for you, not to you, I actually put a TikTok up a few days ago. I had this thing come in and, funny, Danny, I had just gotten off a call with you when it came in and it was about my ex-husband. So let me back up for a second and say that my biggest era in my life of victimhood was in my 20s. I got married really early. My first husband, I absolutely adored. I was so proud to be his wife. I didn't get married right away. He'd asked me multiple times. I had so much trauma as a child, having multiple stepdads and lots of divorces, that to me, getting married, I didn't really believe in it. I'd never seen any evidence of good. Sorry, to those of you that might trigger, but that was my personal life experience. And so for me to commit to marry this guy meant we were going to be married forever. Like that was my role and, my belief system. And so when our marriage was literally dismantling and, blowing up, I was in complete devastation. And when we did get divorced, I was a victim of it for, I'm going to say, a minimum of 11 years, you guys.
Wow.
I was so destroyed over, getting divorced, because that meant that I was doing what my parents did to me, to my kids. Okay. So just to say that where my biggest point of victimhood in my life was where my biggest wound was. Isn't that interesting? And so what was really crazy was this thing that dropped in a few days ago that I recorded on TikTok about was that it had dawned on me that my husband, who I was trying to change myself for him, okay? Because I had to have this marriage work, because I was a child of 5 divorces, that I had to basically turn myself inside out to make this marriage work. I was keeping a calendar on every time we were in an argument, how I showed up and what his response was, so that I could figure out the formula of what our successful relationship was going to be like. Wow. Crazy. But that's what I was doing. And I realized after a month of keeping a calendar, a month and a half of keeping a calendar, that no matter how I changed myself, his response was going to be the same.
Wow.
And that's, it was very harmful to me personally, because I was taking it so personal, because I really needed this to work because of my woundedness, that there wasn't anything that I could do to change it meant I was the problem. That's how personal I took it. So when our marriage ended, then I was in victimhood for a really long time. And what had dropped in was this week was that I've played that pattern out of me changing myself to be loved for other people so many times in my 50 some odd years of existence. And that was the universe in that moment giving me an opportunity to learn not to be her anymore. In my early 20s, I had that opportunity.
Wow.
I didn't have any of the skills. Like Danny said, I didn't have any of the skills to do that in my early 20s. And so I played that pattern with him, and I played it at jobs. I played it with boyfriends. I played it with friends. It just went on and on and on. Isn't that crazy?
It's that loyalty to a fault. I've definitely had, like, my parents divorced when I was a kid, and that instilled in me, I will never, leave a relationship.
Right.
Then that, like, it made me hold on to things way too long. Like, there was a few relationships in my past, like, where it was like definitely like time to move on. Just kept on holding. It's like I have to be loyal. Like, I don't want to be the person that lets go. Like, what happened to me to put me into this position. And then, as we learn from the class that you mentioned at the start, like, that's not loyalty, because you're not being loyal to yourself. And it's not what a divine definition of loyalty is, not an enlightened definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the, for me, as you guys talk about this, I've only been shown from every woman in my lineage that no matter how unhappy you are in a marriage, you don't leave, but
Yeah.
you become a victim. So it's the
Yeah.
constant complaining, it's the constant unhappiness, but it's like there's no power, there's no strength as to like putting my foot down and going, actually, I don't want this for me anymore. They just continue and continue and continue till you're 40, 50 years into the marriage. And at that point, it's like, well, we've been doing this for so long, might as well stay. Like
Yeah.
my grandmother was extremely unhappy and controlled to the day she died. And throughout the entire marriage, she was a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way to
Yeah.
live.
And that's, you know, the epitome of taking something personally. And it's okay. You know, for one, let me just say that to everybody listening. It's okay that we took things personally.
Mhm.
It's a part of our journey. It's just part of our journey. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's what we get to do when we know how to do something different.
Mhm.
That's where that opportunity comes in.
Yeah. Do you guys ever have moments where you'll look back at certain memories in your life and you'll start to like really break down and see what's happening? Like as you were speaking, I had this memory when I was around 8 or 9 and I was with my uncle and I asked my uncle if like the TV was working downstairs, right? And his answer to me was no, it's not working. And then I turned around and I ended up asking his wife if the TV was working and then he flipped out on me, right? And I took it so personally as a child because I was like, I asked the wrong question. Like I'm the one who upset him. And now looking back, it's like, no, I just triggered him and he was running a program and he projected that onto me.
Yeah.
And then I took it personally. And then that thus goes the cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. I love that example. Exactly. Welcome to everyday, all day long for most people.
And then the more that you do this work that we offer and the more that you heal, like you're able to look back. I remember like looking back at people who I was bullied by. And
Oh my
it's
God.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, I understand that they were just, I mean, there was instances where I, became the bully, which is, what happens with that kind of trauma, or wound. But when I look back now, it's like I understand the programs that they were running. I understand that they were just looking for somebody to feel powerful and control because somebody probably projected that onto them and made them feel really small. And they're just looking for somebody to allow that part of them to come out so they can feel superior or good in any fashion. And when you heal enough, you're able to have that point of view, that perspective of like, oh, this was nothing against me. They were just looking for that energy is within them and it's looking for something to just project it out onto so they can feel, okay about themselves, because deep down they feel really small and insignificant and unloved. And that's why they're doing it. And that's why I can't wait for, as this work grows and spreads like a wildfire through humanity, it's going to reach the schooling system, and we're going to have a 180 on the way that everyone is dealt with, kids that are bullied. And it's like, let's sit them down and figure out why they're doing it in the first place.
Yes.
We don't need to like punish them. And I mean, there needs to be consequences for actions for sure. But like that kid is acting out, is crying out for help. They need attention. They need love in some regard, some part of their past.
Yeah.
And if we're going to integrate that into the school system, I think it would really help. Like we can really transform the schools.
Yep. Yeah. I was severely bullied in high school, and all the girls that bullied me got just like a little smack on the wrist. Like they were called into the principal's office and like reprimanded for 10 minutes. And then it was back into the witch hunt of like, where's Ellie and let's destroy her. And it's true. And this is why there's so much darkness in the world. This projection and blaming onto other people, this is why we're here doing the work. And this is why so many people are on the path, is because we can no longer keep running like this. We can't.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And, when you were both talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is, conscious communication. I'm going to use an example of being bullied at school as well. I was at 7-Eleven. I think in America, a lot of us know what that is, a convenience store nationwide. And, it was a hangout. It was a hangout place for teenagers, right? Friday night, you're hanging out. And I remember an old friend who just happened to be in town. I hadn't seen her in years, came up to me and started bullying me in front of my friends. And I remember going, what is happening right now? This is Treloar. We love each other. What? Literally, I'm so confused. And I remember inquiring. I was like trying to remind her of who I was, saying, what's going on with you? Are you in pain? Why are you picking on me? Please don't do this.
Wow.
And by the way, I'm getting pretty lit up, and, I don't want to fight you because but she was trying to kick my ass, frankly. And I remember having to defend myself. And I picked her up off the ground and I hugged her in my arms and I told her, I love you. Look at that. And everybody was like, holy crap, what just happened? And I remember at school the next day, people were like, we never knew you had it in you. And I was like, you guys, I was defending myself. I'm not a fighter. Do you know a lot of girls wanted to fight me after that? And it's so ironic we're having this conversation because just the last couple of weeks, I'd been thinking about that.
Mm.
And I was, just getting curious and asking questions with myself, like what was really going on in that situation, shifting my perspective, shifting my point of view. And what I realized was that those girls that were coming at me to pick on me had a lot of anger and they needed to get their anger out. And it looked like I was somebody who was going to defend myself so that they could actually fight to get their anger out. And it was so interesting to have that point of view as opposed to being the victim that I was of being bullied by those girls. And I was scared to death. I can remember, I'm just going to call her by her initials, BB. Like that was a big ass girl, and I'm 5'8" and I'm pretty big myself. So for me to be like, that girl's intimidating is a thing. But I had girls at me trying to fight me because of that one instance at 7-Eleven, when I was probably 14 years old. Because I'm actually a pretty gentle person, with regards to stuff like that. So yeah, people will bring their programs at you because it's like they're trying to find ways to get them out of themselves,
Yes.
In their dysfunctional patterns. And so this BB girl, for instance, she was one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Bullying me.
Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, it's a long story, but I'll just make it super short. I started getting canceled on the internet. And all these people were coming for me. And I could feel the energy of how much they wanted. They were trying to annihilate me. They were trying to destroy me and my career and all of these things. And I got a couple of DMs on Instagram of people basically telling me to go kill myself and like all this crazy stuff. And so I took it like as my responsibility. I went, I'm going to message each and every person. And I'm just going to go, hey, I hear you. What's going on? Like I can feel
so perfect.
I can feel that there's a lot going on. I know that probably got nothing to do with me, but I can feel how angry you are. I can feel how hurt you are. Just talk to me. And every single person that I messaged came back to me and said, no one's ever asked me that. Or thank you for listening. Thank you for asking. I'm sorry that I, hated on you. Like I'm just feeling this way and that way. And I realized it never had to do anything with me.
Yeah.
I was just a perfect little poster kid for them to just throw up and spew and spear and everything. And the moment I took some time, it was like, I'm just hurting. And it's like, this is what I'm saying. Like we are all the same when it comes to that. We are all having this human experience and there is so much pain and we are suffering. And if we just took the time to go, hey, what's really going on? What's really coming on? The world.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And when we're in the present moment with an open heart, as opposed to bringing our past stuff in or projecting to our future, and we're interacting with people, we can simply just go into question mode with conscious communication. Like I was sharing, in my elementary way at 14 years old, was I like, hey, do you remember who I am? We grew up together. We love each other. It's sometimes we just need to go, hey, how are you today? Like, what's really going on? In what way can I, whatever, come into the present moment, open our hearts. And then it's not about us. We're not taking it personally. We're not pushing it back on them. We're receiving that from, we're receiving in totally a different way. They're getting from us maybe even something they didn't know they needed. Like those people, I've never had anyone tell me that before or respond to me that way. That's really what they needed. And how beautiful, Ellie, that was your response. And to imagine, like, how did that change you when you didn't take it personally?
Yeah. It really made me see, because the whole time I was like, it's me. Like, I'm the problem. I should not open my mouth. I should not speak. I should not. It was like, you're dumb. It was days and days of me just really destroying myself. And then I had this moment where I was like, Ellie, it's got nothing to do with you. Find your power and learn what you need to learn from this and stand up. Because if you're going to let this thing take you down, like, sis, you ain't ready for everything else that's coming that's going to take you down. So it was a moment for me to really stand in that. And then 3 days later, I was back on the internet and I was like, I am not going to let you guys pummel me. And I'm also going to reach out and say, hey, are you okay? And it was just a big turning point for me, for sure. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I'm so glad you shared that. I love it. And one of the things we get to do is use our 20 universal ways of oneness. And the first thing is responsibility. I have a responsibility, like Danny was saying, loyalty. Like, I have a responsibility to myself.
Yeah.
Is there a responsibility here in oneness with you?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Right? Asking the question, what do you need? Right? Shifting into a different perspective from taking it personally allows oneness consciousness to happen, because all of a sudden we're in this receptive mode instead of this closed mode.
Mm-hmm.
And, and what's my responsibility right now? Are you safe? Right?
Yeah.
Are you okay? And we get to discern that, right? That's all part of our discernment.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And that shift can be the hardest thing to do. Like, the easy thing to do is to fall into the programs, to blame, and do that. And that subtle little shift is all it takes. I mean, when we as partners are working through something, it's really easy for one of us to show up in a way and then the other one to mirror the exact same thing. And then whenever we sit down and we kind of like talk through what's going on, it's, oh, I'm disconnected because I feel you're disconnected. And it's this, we're doing the exact same thing. And the hard thing to do is to recognize, oh, they are running a program. I can choose right now to not do the same thing that they're doing, to not, because otherwise I'm falling in, I'm hating the fact that she's running the program. And instead of me actually dropping in and making that shift, if I fall into my programming, then I'm becoming the very thing that I'm hating. Mm-hmm. So why do that? Why would I ever want to become the thing that I'm hating? Making that subtle shift, it can be so simple as just coming back to your heart and opening. And then in that place, it changes the whole dynamic of every interaction you have. I'm using the partnership as an example, but it's everything.
Right. It is everything. Yeah.
It's everything. And often I found making that shift is all we need in that interaction to change the outcome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, Treloar, like about that instance with your partner, your ex-husband, where you're communicating, but it didn't matter what you said, he gave the same response. And that is a potential outcome. But from what I found, for the most part, we can make the shift and then they follow and they shift too. Yeah. Because they realize, oh, I'm annoyed at them, I'm hating them, and they're loving me. Maybe I don't need to be angry right now. Maybe I don't need to do this. And that can be enough to just make that shift. to snap them out of the programming that they were in or that they're running at that time. And that can be with, a randomer that you meet on the street.
Yeah.
It can be with BB. It can be, with anyone. But that doesn't mean that us making the shift. It's like if we make that little shift back into our hearts and into the present moment, it allows them the opportunity to do that too, if they so choose. And it sounds like in your experience, you've had partners that didn't choose that. And
right.
And that's where you decide, maybe it's time for me to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. So ironic. If you guys haven't heard Rachel Fiori's latest podcast, it's actually in reference to some of this stuff too. It's awesome sauce. And, the reality is some people won't grow with you and they have their own timing, and that's okay. And guess what? You don't have to take that personally either.
Yeah.
It's not about you. That's about them.
Yeah.
When they're not ready to grow at your pace, and you've taken responsibility for your parts, you've been patient for them, you've surrendered to the fact that these are the things, you remain loyal to both of you, right? You've tried to have unconditional love. Sometimes it's just time to move on.
Yeah.
It just is, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a partner, whatever. Mm-hmm. Because they're just not ready to grow at the same pace you are. And that's okay. We don't have to take the fact that we're leaving personally either. Yeah.
If you are having a interaction with somebody that is taking it personally, what would you do?
That's a great question. Loaded. There's so many different variations and possibilities. What I can say is this. I owe it to myself, right? I want to love myself enough to shift into the present moment and open my heart. Ground into the earth, take a nice deep breath. Remember that I am a divine being, have a human experience. Really, take a couple of seconds just to get real. Treloar, this is what you think you are. Remember it right now. Get as powerful and open as you can. And then sense and feel into what the right thing is. And you don't need to respond right now. It's okay that you look like deer in the headlights, while you're trying to discern what it is to do. And then do some gentle, suggestive questioning, right? Soften your body language, whatever. Just go ahead and open up and be somebody who's not going to receive a bunch of negativity and projections. Powerful means that they get to drop right down in front and go back to the other person, but receive in the fact that there's something going on with this person right now. And I get to make the choice whether or not I'm going to engage in it, because it might simply say, you know what? We're not communicating great right now, and I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I love you. Let's connect later. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Right? Or I don't think that I can leave and this is a safe situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I see. How can I help you with this right now?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That was a very Rachel Fiori answer. We often want this black or white duality mind. What do I do here? Do I do this or do I do that? And you touched on it. I mean, the truth is to get to mastery, it takes discernment. We have to discern the difference. And that comes from each experience and our own guidance from our own soul. Mm-hmm. So beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, and just know, in the back end, all the woundedness is wanting to come up there and take things personal, right? In whatever situation, if I'm mirroring something, that's always going to be there until I heal all of it and become somebody that's self-realized. That's the human experience. Frankly, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And when we can surrender to that, that's what I'm here for.
Mm.
We can not take things so detrimentally personally, and we can see them as the opportunities.
Beautiful. For anyone out there who wants to work with Treloar and any of our mystical life coaches at Master of Self University, you can set up a free consultation at masterofselfuniversity.com. Share, subscribe, like, comment, all of the good things. And thank you so much, Treloar, for being here with us. And until next time.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys
I
then.
love you both so much. Bye for now.